Hello, and welcome to another exclusive interview by Recovery Today magazine and Recovery Today podcast, your magazine and show of hope. Whether you're considering addiction recovery for yourself or a loved one, or you're actively in recovery a short while or many years, you'll find information on all topics related to addiction, recovery, and living a happy, successful, sober life at Recovery Today. Join hosts Rob Hannley and Mike Diamond as they bring you raw, real, edgy, and damn funny discussions with influencers, celebrities, and top experts worldwide. Start moving forward and live the life you are meant to live. Your journey to true recovery starts here on Recovery Today podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another exclusive interview by Recovery Today magazine and Recovery Today podcast, where first and foremost, we are a magazine and a podcast of hope. Whether you're considering addiction recovery for yourself, your loved one, you're actively in recovery maybe a little while, or you're just curious, you've been sober a long, long time, you're going to find all kinds of information in the podcast and the magazine about really living a happy, successful, and sober life. My name is Rob Hannley. I'm the editor-in-chief of Recovery Today magazine, and I am joined by two amazing friends of mine and co-hosts, Mike Diamond and Ricky Barnes. And today, for our debut podcast, as we launch the whole podcast series, my new quick friend, Robb Humphreys. Let me tell you about Rob real quick. He is a director and he is an actor. He's known for Lord of Illusions, JoJo Baby, and A Gathering of Magic, behind the scenes of Lord of Illusions. He's also has a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. He is also certified as a substance abuse counselor, and he has the best part is, he has a gifting of helping others to find the answers they're searching for on the quest of life. I absolutely love that, man. So thanks for jumping out. I already just thought you're cool as hell, and so appreciate you spending some time with us here.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. I appreciate the intro.
Yeah, man. So, and you're located, by the way, you were like Hollywood, and now you're over in Paradise. I think you're in Maui or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I was in Los Angeles for a long time, and after my third rehab, where things kind of clicked for me finally, I decided with my wife that we would come over to Hawaii and kind of start new, which was part of the whole epiphany of the sobriety, and kind of got me on this path. So yeah, we're in Maui. We've been here almost 7 years and loving it.
Nice, man. So Ricky knows you. Ricky's like, hey, dude, you're going to be on the podcast. You're like, cool, sounds great. So I don't that much other than just a few emails back and forth. And so, start us off, man. Like, take us through the journey. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are. I kind of already got the Hollywood thing in there. I've already got my mind, the mental, Hawaii. Let's get out of the rat race. Let's do our thing. So just bring it, dude. Bring some of that, like, intuition to, like, finding people that are gifting, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, can I ask you a question? You said one thing.
Of course.
Said it, and you said the third rehab something clicked.
Yeah.
What clicked?
Okay, so that's really the kind of the backbone of why I'm still sober and what I'm doing now and why we're all talking, because what clicked is I realized being in that third rehab, what happened was I kind of come to on day 2 or 3, I don't remember really, and I shuffle into the community room and the Super Bowl's on, okay? It's February, early February. And I sit there and it dawned on me that 7 years prior to that, I watched the Super Bowl in rehab. And so there was this moment of, what am I doing? 7 years ago, I watched the Super Bowl in rehab. Here I am again as a 42-year-old now, and I'm in rehab again. Something is not working. One of the things that really kind of came to me was I always viewed, and this was my own fault, it's nothing against sobriety, but I viewed sobriety as a full stop. I am sober, period. What changed is I am sober, comma, and the sentence went on. And so it wasn't all encompassing. It wasn't just about meetings. I got a vision of myself as happy, healthy, vibrant, all these things, kind of the self-actualized person, and I said, that's who I want to be. So sobriety actually became the foundation to get to that person, but it wasn't all. I didn't have this mentality of like, oh my God, I just have to go to meetings every week and I have to do all the things that we do, the stigma part of it, right? Sobriety became an opportunity to me. It was like turning a coin over. Instead of like, oh, fuck, I can't do this, and it's going to be such a bummer going to concerts or whatever, it became like, hey, just a second. I don't know who I am yet because I've never really been sober, and I've never really been happy. I did it because I needed to, I should, it helped my relationship, it helped my career, et cetera, et cetera. But the excitement became, I get to find out who I am. And it was a wide open palette. And so
okay,
that
so first
became
of all, let me stop you real quick. So, because you said I want to know, I found out who I am. So I don't want to. So I want to jump in and jump out of different parts like that. But what I want to get to first of all is not. I do want to get to who you are, but I also would like to know who you were. So like who? Give us like the whole like. Kind of like, you know, not necessarily from the log cabin. I was born in a log cabin, but like just tell it like what's the story, and then we're gonna, you know, so start from there. Like who at least were you? So we can
So you know, I grew up in the Mojave Desert, outside of Los Angeles. My journey into drugs and alcohol, I think, really began as a quest. Like I grew up. A lot of time, alone time in the desert. I was fascinated with American Indians. I was fascinated with peyote and shamanism and that whole kind of quest, right?
Yeah.
So I got into it, and I kind of find that people are either going towards something or running from something when they get started, right? So I was going towards, but, you know, and maybe for a number of years it was working in certain aspects, but as the addiction, you know, takes over, you lose that spiritual quest, and I became an addict. I was in Hollywood, I was working in film and music videos, and everything was about ego. I wanted my name on the screen, I wanted more money, I wanted a new car, and you know, I wanted all those things. And I can look back and I understand that there's such a fear-based mentality to all of that. I was afraid, and if I did not have drugs and alcohol, I could not go into a pitch meeting. I could not get behind the camera. I couldn't do any of that stuff. I was too afraid. And so that moment of who am I just realized it was all a facade. You know, I had a house in Beverly Hills. I had a beautiful wife, 2 kids, and it just didn't make any difference whatsoever. And so the quest then became, I don't have to do this. I can become anything I want to be. I don't have to stay in LA. I don't have to do film. I don't, you know, and I'm not saying you have to change your career or anything to get sober. I don't. For me, it was just an opportunity to leave behind something I'd worked so hard to kind of mold so it looked good on the outside. But on the inside, it was a fucking disaster, right? And so that opportunity of who can I be, I didn't know who I was going to be. I just was excited to find out because I was tired of being who I was.
I think that's badass, man. Like, I think of life as like a story that we're in. I think that at times, like when I get too wrapped up in stuff, or I feel anxiety or depression or something like that, and like I'm too much in the story, I try to get out. It sounds like that you're a guy, and I love, by the way, like some of my favorite movies are like The Lord of the Rings. I love the whole idea of the quest. Like, okay, cool, man. Like we're on this adventurism of life, like, and not necessarily like what am I supposed to find, but like almost like what's it going to turn out to be, man? Like it's dangerous. There's people will fucking meet on the way, right? Like there's cool stuff. Am I kind of on target with like the whole quest kind of?
You're absolutely on target, and in fact, that goes to the whole point about the whole sobriety comma, you know, because what you're talking about is Joseph Campbell. You know, you're talking about the hero's journey, which we all do. And so sobriety can be that journey. It doesn't just have to be the big book and the 12 steps. You use that, and then you get on your path, and you read about Joseph Campbell, and Joseph Campbell says, the cave you fear to enter is the one that holds your treasure. So you get brave and you go into the cave and you find out more and more, and, it's kind of unravels. And so I think it is all about a quest. And I think that's what, became exciting about being sober, is it wasn't just the stigma of being sober. It was like, hey, I can do this now. All these years I thought I was doing a lot of these things, but it was just a fear-based existence. So, yeah, I think that's exactly right. It is a quest. And whether we acknowledge it or understand it, we're all on it.
Yeah.
It's just, what do we do with it?
Cool.
Yeah.
So, Rob, I've heard you say a couple of words a few times already. And one of the phrases I've heard you say is, I have to. But you also dropped in, I get to. When you talk about flipping that coin over, I get to. And I had this rock star that I worked with several years ago that had he had this big tour coming up, and at the time the band was not getting along, and it was going to be a bitch. And living on a bus with these guys, living in a hotel, going out, doing the thing, same thing over and over every day. And he was like, I have to do this, man. It's going to suck. It's going to suck. And what I brought up to him was, hey, look at this. This is your dream, dude. Yeah, you have to do this. You have to support your family, but you get to do this. So I heard you say, I get to do this. How did you make that part of your recovery and wanting to have it, like saying, I get to be a recovered person, your third time in rehab?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I love that story because I really think, I gauge my sobriety. I have a barometer. If it ever starts to feel like a chore, I know I'm doing something wrong or I'm missing something, I'm not doing enough of this or that or whatever, because the truth is, it's now a gift. I'm grateful for it. So the get-to point was that excitement of, it's kind of like hopscotching something. It's like I sat there in that rehab and I caught a vision, a very quick glimpse of myself, not what I looked like or what I was doing or where I was living, but what I felt like. And so when you're in rehab and you feel like absolute shit and you're full of shame and all the stuff that you've done to get you there is coming up and you're thinking, oh my God, this is a disaster. I knew I was going to get fired. I knew all these things. But I caught a glimpse of feeling good. And I'm like, that's it. There was a guy on a mountaintop that was me and I wanted to get there. And so that changed the thing to like, I don't have to do this. I get to do it because I want to get up there. And so it wasn't just about like, okay, get a new sponsor, like all those kind of stigma things, which nothing wrong with. I did all those things because I needed to. But there was more to it on the other side of it. Like I wanted to get up to the mountain. And so that's what changed for me, man. It was like that vision of vibrance and happiness, true happiness, not just sobriety. Because the honest truth is, we have to have the barometer of honesty. If we're going to be that person, we have to be sober. We can't do that if we're fucked up all the time and we're destroying relationships, we're lying, we're doing all those things. We have to be that kind of person to get there. That was the get to. That was the flipping over. Like, I want that. I'm tired of being in the gutter. I want to be on the mountaintop.
You know what I love about that, Rob, is you talked about forward motivation towards something, and you also talked about what you wanted to get away from. Then you just said that you wanted to climb a mountaintop. And I think that's a really good analogy when we break down mindset, and we always say peak performance. When we don't say, disempowering, we say empowering or peak. We want to reach a peak, and that peak to you was the visualization of a mountaintop, which is pretty awesome because, like, when I work with people in recovery, I like to try to say to someone, I want you to visualize the person you want to be and then have forward motivation that drives you forward to get there. And you naturally, in that moment, had that spiritual click where you were like, this is the person I envision. And we also know that any kind of repetition, mental repetition, neurons that fire together, wire together, and it's been proven through, the neural pathways. If you keep repeating something over and over again, you eventually walk into your future self. So my question is this, you've done all that. How do you now stay the course? How do you make sure you have enough forward motivation and you know what you want to avoid, because right now we're going through a pandemic. So we all know what we want to avoid, which is, we want to avoid being homeless. We want to avoid being sick. What's your forward motivation now that you could give to someone that's like tuning in that's in early sobriety?
That, the great thing about this journey is what I have found is, you start, like when I work with clients, and I don't care if they're in my office for depression or heroin addiction, they don't leave without hearing the two most important questions that I have is, who are you and who do you want to be? Because right here is the work, okay? Take who you are now and who you want to be. How do we address this area? And so to answer your question, for me, what I have found is every time I stop to gauge where I'm at, this keeps moving. Every time I get closer to having okay, I'm getting closer to who I want to be, because I'm growing spiritually, the person who I want to be also gets further away, because I start wanting more. I start wanting to get more connected. I want to go deeper. I want to go further. So how do you do it is you stay focused on the journey. You stay focused on that person that you want to be, and you find, at least I have found in my experience, that person keeps growing. And then so the quest keeps going and the mountain keeps going. I don't think you ever get there, and that's the fun part about it. You just keep growing. And sometimes, it takes different things. For a while I got super into this and super into that, and that kind of clicks and changes, and now it's this. So it's always kind of an evolving thing. But I had a director friend of mine tell me, I was kind of struggling on the set one day, and he just said, put his arm around me, and he said, imagine there's a whole peak of mountains out there. He's like, what you need to do is pick one and start going. Yeah. You might get halfway up and decide that's not the mountain you want to climb, so go ahead and change course. But if you stand here in the valley and you look at them all, you're going to miss all of it. You're never going to go anywhere.
Dude, that resonates so strongly with me, because what I like to say a lot to people, even as we were actually talking about the podcast and how the podcast was emerged, and Recovery Today has been around for 5 years and 65 issues. And I'm always one to say, it's not concrete, man. It's not like we're pouring concrete. If something doesn't work or whatever, man, we can drink. I think the main thing is to just get in motion. And I remember thinking, I had this analogy when I got out of college, and I still think of it a lot, and this might sound bad. I don't really mean it this way at all, but and probably for all of us can relate to this. Maybe everybody can relate to this. So I'll think my problem a lot is I'm pretty good at, I'm good at a lot of things. What should I do? Should I do this or this or this or this? But you can't do all of it at one time, right? And so you get this constipation about fuck, what should I do, man? I don't really know. And I think that it's best to, it might even be in choosing a spouse or a mate or making, all of these are exits that fuck, should I take this? You're driving down the highway, should I take this exit or the next one? For one thing you shouldn't do is just stay there. Fucking move somewhere, man. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is what, a program like Mike has come up with the Conscious Outlaw, is that it's like getting out of the fear-based being stuck and just saying, okay, I'm going to go for it. And maybe it's not the be-all, end-all path, but at least I'm on the path and I'm moving. And I think that's a huge part of it. We all know how momentum breeds more momentum. If we sit there on the couch, it's harder and harder to get off the couch. But once we get moving and we start doing things, that becomes the easier part.
Absolutely.
Cool. So, Rob, you talked about, so you're a therapist, you're in recovery, you have clients, and you talked about having a guy who's in depression and a guy who's a heroin addict. And so I wanted to ask you about your treatment processes. And what I really want to know is some of the stuff that you've learned in your recovery program, you then adapt it and change wording and such so that it will help the guy in depression. Is there a crossover there? Is there, an integrative thing that's going on?
Oh, absolutely. Because the guy who's in depression, may not have taken the path to start reaching for booze and drugs, but he's feeling the same discomfort that we've all felt. So you and I and Mike and Rob and, we've felt something, in our soul, and we found drugs and alcohol as a path out. It was a temporary fix. This person hasn't. So it's the exact same thing. It's still the same conversation about who are you? Who do you want to be? What do we need to do? So the difference may be, in that gap, this person may not need to go to AA, but he still may need to have a better diet, go to the gym, get outside, all these other things. He may just not have that gene of addiction. There's still a very strong crossover with all of it. We all have the human experience going on, and it all sucks sometimes, right? Yeah. And so whether we find a quick fix or not, I think at the root, and I think, treatment works best not when you just say, here's how you get sober, but when you go underneath it and say, let's look at why you need that. And so that's what you do. And so with the addict or the alcoholic, yeah, you add in a recovery program and it's more life or death. But it's still the same thing. We're still doing the same human experience, yeah.
So do you feel that you have an advantage over, say, other therapists who haven't completely destroyed their whole fucking life? You crash and burn, you gained all this information by getting in recovery and then using that in your career as a therapist. Do you feel like you have more to offer?
Oh, without a doubt, because it's real. The best therapist, I feel, and I don't think this is 100% across the board, but, if you go in for an eating disorder and your therapist has never had an eating disorder, there's, I'm sure, going to be great value to the exchange. But if you sit down with someone who says, hey, I've been there, I get it, this is how I found the path out. And so even though the person may not be a recovering addict or be dealing with that, the fact that you've been in the trenches, the fact that you've gone through some serious shit to get where you are means something. And again, I've known amazing therapists who aren't addicts or recovering addicts or anything. So it's not across the board, but do I feel it helps? It absolutely helps.
I asked one time, I asked my brother, who we were trading emails back and forth, my brother Greg, to give you props, and he's a pretty smart guy. He's my older brother, and I asked him this question, like this fucking like Buddha type of question. I texted him one day. Actually, it was kind of in the last recession. It was about 2009. I said, out of the blue, I don't know why, intuitively, I sent him this text. I go, what's the meaning of life, man? Like, what's this shit all about? Like, I'm always trying, so I resonate so strongly with this quest. Like, who the fuck am I? Like, what am I supposed to, somebody tell me what the fuck to do, right? Like, if you just tell me, that's what's in my heart, right? So I sent him this message, and I said, what's the purpose of life? What are we supposed to do here? Send, right? And that's the kind of message that somebody would be like, they'd send back, and they'd be like, well, shit, that's a fucking, like, really, like, profound question, like, And instead, message came back right away, and it said, to give confidence to others. That was it. Oh, nice. There was nothing else at all. And I was like, what the fuck kind of message is that, man? Give confidence to others. So I didn't reply back. I just thought, like, okay, that was purposeful, like, And it took me about a day and a half to start breaking down the ingredients to give confidence to others. And I thought, so how the hell do you give – the only way you can really give confidence to others is through experience, right? And to say, okay, you're really fucked up, okay, and I'm not, but I was like you are. So what you're going through, I can relate to it, and then this is how I came out of it. It's like, or being a soldier and crossing a landmine, or back to the question on an adventure, it's like, don't step there. Like, that fucked me up, or you did step there, but you can get out, right?
Right. Absolutely. And, to go for it, Mike.
I was going to ask you, you said some really amazing things, and the one thing you said was, what do you want? And then you touched on a little bit of why you're doing it. How important to you do you feel as a therapist when you're dealing with an addict or non-addict for a person to have that why, to have that purpose? Because I think purpose is the glue.
Totally.
How do you as a therapist work with someone if they're stuck in a situation like you went from, like me, like the debauchery, the rock star thing, the film and TV stuff, into therapy? What was the why? What clicks for you?
Well, let me start by addressing it as a therapist, because a lot of times what I find with clients is when you hear the stories coming out, what you find is, or what I find is, there's a lot of attachment to the material world, okay? I don't have a good enough job, my partner left me, things are happening, right? So my first thing as far as the purpose and as far as confidence is to take some of that away and get the client to remember who they are as a spiritual creature. You know, who are you? Like, what is the quest that you're on? You know, relationships, when I work with couples, is like, you know, are you guys striving to be full circles as much as possible and let the relationship tie you together, or are you all intertwined, right? Because we have to remember we are our own person, regardless of our jobs, our income, our marital status. So to really answer your question, what I try to do at the beginning with that, to reconnect people with their purpose, is to say, okay, I understand that's what brought you into my office, but now let's talk about who you are. What are the things you're afraid of? Are you afraid of your partner leaving? Are you afraid of getting fired? Or these things, these fear-based society, you know, belief systems? And we have to go back and look at belief systems and where they came from. You know, people don't take the time. A lot of people do in sobriety, because the steps help us do it, is to look at our belief systems and ask ourselves, does this work for me anymore? And if it doesn't, get rid of it. And if it does, keep it.
Yeah, I love that. It makes complete sense. And then, sorry to ask you this question. So back in the day, and you're a therapist, so do you feel people are always in recovery or they recover?
Good question, man.
Yeah, okay. Boom, yeah, go right for the jugular. My personal belief is that we're always in recovery. I don't think it's a past tense thing, because past tense and ED means we can stop. And like I was saying in that journey about who am I, who do I want to be, and how it keeps moving and moving, is it's never going to be a stopped thing. The quest does not end, even though, you know, the Death Star blows up or whatever. There's the sequel.
There's another one.
There's another one. We reach a goal, and then we keep moving on. And so, you know, I think this is a hot topic, and I've heard very, very strong arguments for saying I'm a recovered alcoholic or anything, and I'm fine with that if that works for you. For me, it just implies like just kind of slowing down. And to me, I don't want to slow down. I don't think we can afford to.
So basically, you say the journey that has no end.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want it to end at this point, because every time I get closer to where I want to be, it gets better, and I want to keep going.
Yes, you both.
Where do you want to go now? Where do you, like, I know that you're getting ready to start once we get past all of this science fiction movie, this coronavirus that we're living in. It's we're all characters in a bad sci-fi now. So I know that you've got a school, you've got a passion for kids. Like, where is it though? Like, and this is kind of a pretty deep kind of interview, but like, where is it? What's your purpose, man? Like, where are you going? And or are you just kind of surfing it to kind of chillax and see like where it's going to take you, or what?
No, I want to go into the caves deeper and darker. That's where I want to go. Like, I have this vision of I call it the cave of elders. And so every time I get deep with myself and my journey, I imagine myself going into a cave where there's wise men who have been around for millennia and have from all different kinds of religious and spiritual backgrounds, and I want to commune with them. So that kind of keeps me on my quest going. I just, like Joseph Campbell, I want to just keep going deeper. And if I recognize the path, it's not mine. So I have to get on a new path and keep challenging myself. But I think, you know, on the other end of that question, what your brother said to you, I think is the most important thing we can be doing right now. And that's why I do want to have this program for kids, because If you can instill that in adolescents today, that you can be confident in who you are, and you can do things, and you can reach goals. You can break the stigma of what society is telling these kids, which is like, this is kind of a dead end.
Yeah.
If you can break that, I would feel very, very happy with my life's journey if I can pass that on and get kids motivated to say, hang on, I don't have to follow the rules. I don't have to do what my dad did. I don't have to do what, Uncle Johnny says I should do. I can have my own path.
Yeah.
And to, again, get past that stigma, if you're dealing with substance abuse, your life isn't a sentence of church basements and cold coffee. It's actually the most amazing thing you're going to go on, because you can do anything. And so that to me is, and it's like the Conscious Outlaw program, it's like a lot of things breaking the stigma today. If you can get that into adolescence, that's it. That's where it's at. You're starting a whole new generation.
Okay, I got a really controversial question. That's what I'd throw in. All right, you as a therapist, because unfortunately people go into meetings and think they're doctors and therapists, and but people always say, it's a therapist makes a decision about different things. When what is your opinion on plant medicine? Because a lot of people now are using plant medicine for their sobriety, and they are a big part, and they're advocates for it. You as a therapist, what do you think of plant medicine?
I love it. I think it's exciting. I think it's a new frontier that's just opening up. Well, I say it's a new frontier. It's a new frontier for Westerners. It's not a new frontier at all. It's been around for, hundreds and hundreds of years. But to me, look, if you have the opportunity, now look, when you're in sobriety, it's a whole, you're balancing a lot more things when you're dealing with sobriety, okay? But to me, when you have the option of something that's natural or something that's pharmaceutical, to me, I say at least explore it. I don't ever give advice to say, hey, this is what you should do for your depression or your addiction, but I say look at it. Just check it out. See what you think. Read the material, because science is coming out with stuff left and right. The FDA has studies going right now that are expanding the use of psilocybin, for instance.
Yeah.
It started out with just depression and smoking, and now it's expanding. And so, yeah, I say look at it. Maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't, but it's absolutely worth the investigation.
Rob, thank you for telling your truth and having the courage to do that. And Mike, great question.
Well, there's such a stigma against stuff, but like we have a country right now where, there's one side that's like, opiate addiction is through the roof. And, I know plenty of doctors that prescribe stuff all day and just different pharmaceuticals. But then as soon as they touch anything Eastern or plant medicine or something that is opening up the pineal gland and connecting people with their source and spirituality, then you've got this whole group saying, oh, it's a relapse. But you're like, well, hold on a second. That person that's 34 years sober is jacked up on 90 different pain pills because they were told to take them, but really they don't really have the problems they think they have. And so that's why I just wanted to get a therapist's opinion, because I think I like your open-mindedness. It shuts people down. If people are struggling, what people do not like is when I watched the documentary on Bill Wilson, and you find out that Bill Wilson was experimenting with LSD for 6 years. Mm-hmm. That's a long time to experiment for LSD, because
that's wild. That's a while, man.
You're baked.
Right, and then he was taking a ridiculous amounts of B6, I think it was, for his depression.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hold on, you were one of the founders, and you were doing that, but yet anyone else in a meeting that takes your message goes, so it's good to hear your open perspective of it.
That's why there's a doctor's opinion in the book.
Right.
Yeah,
the doctor's opinion, and it states. And so I think we've entered this new realm of openness to these other remedies. And so I work with this gentleman here in Las Vegas who has an organization that supplies CBD and THC to vets. Because so many of these guys with PTSD and with all these injuries coming home, they're prescribed just mountains of drugs. And this guy gets them CBD and THC, and it becomes more of like a damage control for them, because it's like, well, do you want this guy eating 400 oxys a day, or doing a tincture of THC? So I think there's a whole new mindset and acceptance about the whole thing, and I just wanted to comment and say, Rob, I think it's very courageous for you to come out and say that.
Totally courageous, man.
Yeah.
He threw out a lightning rod on that too, man. No question about it.
That's Mikey B right there. We'll just go right for it.
I think we can all agree that if nothing, at least I think, I don't know, I'm saying I think we can all agree. My opinion is nothing is probably better than anything at all. My opinion, again, is something that's natural is better than something that's pharmaceutical, just in general. Again, I'm not a doctor or anything like that. And for the most part, Recovery Today, our platform here has mostly been, I tell people, it's almost entirely been abstinence-based, probably 12-step type based. But I also personally, I don't really care. I tell people, if you find something that actually literally works for you, and you're at peace with yourself, and you are a happy, productive person, in general, my opinion would be, abstinence, man. But like, if you find something that's working for you, and that's probably the key, and you're truly at peace, and everybody else would go, yeah, like, it's not just a delusion. I have to admit, I'm really intrigued, man, by plant medicine. I do remember some of my days way back. It wasn't medicinal, man, but it was, It
was a good trip.
Well,
it comes down to motive. What's your motive? Why are you taking it? Do you really want to do healthy, or do you want to just get wasted?
Yeah, and so let's take a look at what, to me, and I'm sure we all saw this over the last few years in recovery, is the whole kombucha thing. It's like, look, yes, kombucha has a gazillion amazing properties, but there's people that are also going, I like the buzz. And so it goes back to the barometer of honesty. Are you taking it because it's beneficial, or are you taking it because you want a quick buzz or a freebie? And trust me, I'll speak for myself, and I know Ricky knows him too. I saw a guy with decades of sobriety go out on kombucha.
I never knew you could go. You're saying all this, and I'm thinking, damn, I love kombucha. Now I'm thinking, like, no wonder I like it so much, man. I never knew that you could get a butt,
This is the homebrew. Like, here on Maui, man, it's going to a kombucha restaurant here on Maui is like going to a bar. People are sitting up at the bar drinking it for a while, and they're pretty happy. And yeah, they're eating their sprout salad too. But for an alcoholic, that's like putting one foot on a banana peel and the other one on a roller skate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I remember this. That feels pretty good. And hey, it's legal, it's healthy, and man, everyone does it after yoga. That might not be a good idea for an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic, And so I think what Ricky said is exactly right. Now let's look at the motive. Are we looking to decrease dysregulation? Are we looking to expand spirituality, things like that? Or are we going like, oh my God, I got to go get fucked up?
What message overall? I mean, kind of as our debut kind of podcast and stuff here. There'll be a lot more, and we've asked a lot of questions, and these guys asked some really great questions and some deep ones, and put you on the spot and everything like that. But what message? You're talking to a lot of people that are either sober curious, now we say. I never knew even that term before, 6 or 8 months or a year ago, but like they're still using or whatever. They're curious. To people that are newly sober, to some people that have been long time sober, 30 years maybe. So, I mean, in our format right here, like what message would you want to tell people? Like, I mean, whatever it would be, man. Is it about like who you are, where you're going, message of hope, coronavirus? I don't know. Like, what would you want to say mostly?
I guess to me, the biggest point to me in all of this is go beyond sobriety. Let sobriety be the catalyst that takes you to your mountaintop. But don't stop with sobriety, because there's so much more. It's just the entry. It's the entryway into your journey. Because to me, the stigma of, okay, I'm sober, which means I just do my life and go to meetings. We can get stuck in that. And so to me, it's like go beyond. And it means sobriety. It doesn't water down sobriety. It means it's absolutely important because you can't go beyond if you don't have it.
Yeah.
But the comma after it, not the period.
Dude, you are badass, man. I love to talk to people like you that are freaking smart and intuitive, and you're the guy that I want to sit next to on the airplane from freaking somewhere far, far away. Yeah, man.
Bombay, maybe?
Yeah, dude. Like, I always tell people I'm either the guy on the airplane I hate, because I don't want to just fall asleep. I always want to, all this kind of stuff, I just want to learn and transfer information to everybody else, man. So I know everybody that's watching this is going to feel the same way, because there's some good nuggets in here, dude. Like, there's some freaking golden nuggets, man. Like, if people want more of you, how are they going to get back in touch with you, man? Let's give them a pathway to get back. How do they get back in touch and get some more Robb Humphreys, man?
Well, I do have a website. You can check it out. It's just robhumphreys.com, and that could get you my email and phone number, and I'd be happy to talk or do Zoom or whatever. But, I want to say to you guys, especially Ricky, because I've known him, for a while, it's people like you with decades of sobriety who are blazing the trail for others like me to go, this is cool. This is really cool to be like this. I want to be like that. And so thank you to you guys for putting this together, and Recovery Now and Conscious Outlaw, and Rick, all the work you do out there with the community.
Not Recovery Now, Recovery Today. I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry, Recovery Today. My bad. But you guys, you guys are doing it, and I appreciate it.
Right on. Well, outstanding. Anybody got anything else? I was going to kind of bring it. Obviously, I'm looking to bring it in for a landing here, unless anybody's got some other profound question.
Land it.
You can
bring
land
it in.
it.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, Rob, thanks a ton. This has been another exclusive interview, Recovery Today magazine, and thanks again.
We've come to the conclusion of another episode of the Recovery Today podcast. Thank you for joining us on your journey towards recovery. We hope you found today's show to be informative and helpful. If you know someone who could benefit from today's show, please share this with them. For the show notes and additional resources, visit recoverytodaypodcast.com. We'd like to hear from you, so please don't hesitate to reach out. Join Rob Hannley and Mike Diamond again next time for another inspiring and thought-opening discussion here on the Recovery Today podcast.